Hi everyone, this is part two of Gradebook project. So if in the part one we created the file grade, both the header file and the CPP file, the implementation, okay, with all the functions, get grade. I don't think we have the name, so this is unnecessary. So get score and then change or set score and then get the letter grade and display. And then the CPP, we put the implementation. So to convert a numeric grade to a letter grade. And then also display, basically just display the grade, okay? And then we created the students class. So only two attributes or two variables, the name of the students and the vector of grades, okay, the list of grades. So the constructor, it takes the name of the student and automatically populates the grade, asking or prompting the student to enter the number of grades and then enter these grades into uh, our vector grades. But as an object, as you can see right here, pushback grade gr. So we are adding them as grade object, not as an integer, because the vector is of type grade. And then we added the destructor. And then as we mentioned earlier, we see the destructor is just the opposite of constructor. It removes the object. It, uh, it helps us free up memory space when the student's object or any object is not used anymore. So we have the get name and then average grade, highest grade and display. And then the CPP, we put the implementation for the highest grade. This is the code for it. This is the average grade. And display basically just displays the name and the average grade only. Okay. And then the tester, we just created the example of object, student's object, Mike. And then, of course, we are not there yet. So I'm just going to remove this. That's what we're going to be doing now. And then we just created a college student. So college student is a subclass of the students, as you can see right here. Okay. So in addition to the attributes of the student, we're going to add two more variables for college students. The first one is let's say, the college student has a research besides the other normal grades, has a research grade. So I'm going to put research grade here. And then in addition to that, we have also like a Boolean variable called graduating. So this is like whether the student is graduating this semester, this year or not. Okay. Now for public, of course, we start with the constructor. So the constructor, we put college students. So in addition to the name, we have a research grade and a graduating or not. So I'm going to call it grad. So we call the constructor of the superclass students that takes n, the name, and then the rest will be assigned separately. So we have research, a grade equals RG, and then we have graduating equals grad. Okay. So college students, and then we have students. Okay. So let's make sure we have all the information here. We may have to include also the grad.h. and then include IO stream, and then using namespace STD. Okay, include IO stream. All right, so let's see here. So we have the students, and let me see here. I think we are missing something here. Our research, there is one error. And expecting a semicolon in college student dot H. So we have only one column here. Let's see. Okay, we have graduated. That's semicolon. Oh, that's good now. All right. So now let's continue. So we just had the constructor. Now we're gonna add the other functions. So we have get research grade to access your method, and then we can have also like a set, but we don't really need it, and then whether it is graduating or not, graduating. And then in addition to that, we are going to override, the two functions. So if you go to the student CPP, we have the highest grade. We're gonna keep it the way it is. And then let's say for the average grade, we are going to override it. So we're gonna add the research grade, and we're gonna use a formula. Like the research grade, for example, will count for 60%, and the rest of the grade is 40%. The average grade with the other grades, so counts for 40%. So we're gonna override these two. So here we are going to put double average grade that needs to be overridden, and then also the display. So this is the header file. Now let's go to the CPP and put the implementation. We already have the constructor, so we're gonna have the research college student, and then we have get research grade. So we just return it. So return research grade. And then we have also the other function, whether the student is graduating or not. So is graduating, so return graduate. Okay, now it's time to override the other two functions. So we are going to put double college student, and then we are going to override average grade, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to call the average grade from the student's class. So we're going to put return, you put the name of the superclass, to colon, and then average grade. So this will calculate the average grades normally, and then whatever we got, we multiply by 0.4, and then the research, because maybe like the research grade has more weight in terms of grade than the other grades, so we're gonna assign it like a 60%. So whatever the research grade multiplied by 0.6. It's just a way to override our existing average grade. And then for the display, we're gonna do the same thing. So void college student, and then we are going to call the sorry here display So we are going to call the function from the students class and then add the research grade to it. So we're going to put here, let's say, students display. That means whatever you have in display, keep that one. And then in addition to that, I mean, I can just skip a line here. And then in addition to that, put the research grade. My research grade is, well, put it separately. So research grade. And then maybe you can also add and I'm graduating. And I'm graduating this semester, for example. All right. So this is the college students class. Now there is something important I would like to mention here that we did not mention earlier is about the difference between a public, private, and another one called protected. Now let me go back to students. So here, if you look at the attributes or the variable that we use here, you're going to see that we declare all of them to be private, right? So they were initially private like this. Okay. Now, do we have to keep them private? Yes. This is the most kind of acceptable, logical status is to make them private, all the variables. And then the functions, generally speaking, they're supposed to be public. But there are some situations where you want to have access, like let's say to your sibling or to subclasses, to give them access to this information. So for example, if I want to use name in the college student, let me see if I can do that. So if I try, for example, here, and I want to say something just right here somewhere, I want to say to mention my name or the name of the student here. So let's say, for example, here, I'm going to say, see out. By the way, my name is, and then you put name. Look, automatically it's going to be underlined because we don't have access. It is a private variable. You can use it only in the student class right here. So here you can use student anywhere, no problem. It is private, but you can use it anywhere within the class. Now, how can I have access? Because college student is a student, so deserve to have access to that name. So we are going to give access only to the subclasses. All the other classes don't have access, so we use the this keyword which is protected. So we go right here and then we change it to protected. So protected means only the subclasses of this class have access to this information. So here protected, so name is fine. You can use it as a college student because college student is a subclass of student. So now if I go back to college student, can you see the name is not underlined anymore? So it is, it can be, you can have access to name. Okay. Now, if you put public, which I don't recommend, anybody can use it. That's kind of risky. Okay. If you put public here, you are exposing all your variable. So if you have, for example, like a social security number, now anybody can access it. That's not something you want to do. So protected, it is only for the one for the classes that are subclasses. They have the right to access this information. All the other classes don't have access. So protected is the best way to use if you feel either private or protected. Okay. Now let's go to the tester and then try. Okay, we created a student object. Now let's create a college student object cs1. So we're going to call the constructor. So we need the name, and in addition to the name we need the research grade, let's say 95, and then whether it's graduating or not, let's put 1 means is graduating. Okay. And now if I want to call the method CS1 that average grade. Of course, the average grade in the college student class will override the one in the student. So if I run the program, of course, it's going to go over all the other information. That's right here, like let's say 3, 70, 80, 90. So this is using the average grades in the student class, which is normal, 70, 80, 90, 80 is the average. Now, if, I'm sorry, I didn't finish the process here. So I'm going to say here that, okay, the college students, so we can differentiate between the two. The college student average grade is, okay, so, all right, so let's run the program again. So here I'm going to put, hey, Mike, enter the number of grade. Okay, 3, 70, 80, 90. Okay, now, hey, Steve. Steve is the college student. So enter the number, let's say 3. Now we have, let's say, 80, 90, 100. So technically, the average grade should be 90 if we use the formula in the student grade. But because we decided to override the average grade, so the average grade in the college student class will take over, will override it. So now this grade, which is 90, will count only for 40%, and 60% will be the average grade. Remember, we put 95. So that's going to do the calculation here, and we're going to end up having 93. So 93 is 60% of 95 and 40% of the average grade, which is 90. So, and then look at the structure. This student is removed, both of them. When you finish the program, since we have a student, the structure, and remember, even though we have the college student, we didn't put the structure in there, but because it's the subclass, always the constructor and the structure of the superclass will come first, will take effect first, then the constructor of the subclass. Always this happens. So always the constructor and destructor of the superclass will happen first, then the constructor and destructor of the subclass. Okay. Now I'm going to add one more thing, which is, let's use a pointer, for example. So we can have, for example, here college student, and I can use it. It's PTR, see right here, and then I'm going to point to CS1. So we have to use the ampersand CS1. So now instead of using the object CS1, I'm using the pointer. Now, if you want to call a function here, you have to use like a different operator. So for example, I want to display the information here. I'm going to put PTR, but instead of putting point, like dots, now you put dash and then the right arrow. And then you call the, let's say, display. Okay? So display will, of course, will call the function display in the college student because it will override that one. So let's, I'm just going to stop all of this so we can focus only on the last one. Okay, I'm just going to make it as, I'm going to comment them out. Okay, oh, of course, I need this. All right, so now, okay, make sure that this one, yeah, I'm just going to make it there. All right, so we have the corresponding CS1 because we need this information for the pointer, because the pointer will point the address, memory address of CS1. So if I run the program, so it's going to ask me only about Steve. So 3, 80, 90, 100, as you can see. So it's pretty much the same thing with when you use the pointer, it's just a different way. Okay. So that's pretty much about inheritance. So we learned about the inheritance relationship. We learned about the constructor and the structure. We learned about the difference between public, private, and protected. We learned about overriding the functions. So I hope this video will find it useful and beneficial. If you still have other questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.